He never expected the woman he shoved in that crowded bar to react with absolute calm, the kind of calm that comes only from someone who has survived ambushes, gunfire, and missions where a single heartbeat of hesitation means death. And he had absolutely no idea that the woman he was picking a fight with wasn't just any civilian. She was an undercover operative, one of the military's most elite, most dangerous assets. Tonight, he was about to find out. Welcome back to United War, the channel where real tactical wisdom meets gripping military storytelling. Today's story begins on a quiet Friday night in a coastal town where Marines usually go to unwind, and where one man was about to make the worst mistake of his life. The bar wasn't anything special: sticky wooden tables, neon beer signs buzzing unevenly, and a jukebox that alternated between classic rock and songs everyone pretended not to like. Marines fresh off duty filled the place, loud, relaxed, a little wild, but mostly harmless. At the far end of the bar sat a woman alone. To anyone watching, she looked ordinary: jeans, boots, dark jacket, hair casually tied back. But if someone were paying attention, they might have noticed things. The way she sat with her back to the wall, the subtle scan of her eyes each time someone walked in, the quiet alertness beneath her stillness. Her name, at least the name she used tonight, was Alex Ward, and she wasn't here to drink. She was here to watch, observe, blend, and disappear. She was deep undercover, assigned to track a weapons broker rumored to be meeting someone in the area. This bar was the first breadcrumb. She was used to blending in, used to being underestimated, and that usually worked perfectly until men like him came along. He was tall, solid, and carried himself with the unshakable confidence of someone who'd survived deployments and believed that made him unbreakable. His friends called him Santos, a sergeant with a reputation for being a bit too competitive after a few drinks. He spotted Alex the moment he walked in. Not because he was interested, but because something about her bothered him. She didn't look scared, impressed, or intimidated by the loud energy in the room. She just sat quietly, calm, controlled. To a man like Santos, that calm looked like a challenge. He nudged his buddy. "Who sits alone like that?" "Someone waiting for a boyfriend," his friend joked. Santos smirked. "Or someone who needs company." His friends laughed, but one shook his head. "Man, she's not your type. Leave it." Santos didn't listen. Alex noticed him long before he reached her. Heavy footsteps, overconfident stride, shoulders back. A man approaching because he assumed he should. She sighed inwardly. Not because she was afraid, she'd handled far worse than a drunk Marine, but because distractions like this made undercover work harder. He stepped beside her, leaning one arm on the bar. "You're sitting in my spot." Alex looked at him. No fear, no emotion, just a quiet, steady gaze. "Your spot?" she said calmly. "There's no name on it." The Marine grinned, not a friendly grin, but the type a predator gives when he thinks he found prey. His friends watched from a distance, sensing trouble brewing. Santos leaned closer. "You're waiting for a boyfriend." Alex said nothing. She turned slightly away, making it clear she wasn't engaging. That only annoyed him more. He tapped her shoulder, harder than necessary. "Hey, I'm talking to you." Her fingers curled around her glass, not to drink, but to keep her hands ready. She had no interest in escalating, but if she had to defend herself, she'd do it efficiently, cleanly, invisibly. Scene 4. Undercover instincts activate. Alex didn't want to blow her cover. Her mission mattered more than her ego. So she tried the simplest tactic. "I don't want any trouble," she said calmly. "Just leave me be." To her, it was a peaceful request. To Santos, it sounded like disrespect. "You don't tell me what to do," he said, voice rising enough for nearby people to glance over. "You think you're too good to talk to me?" Alex exhaled slowly. She didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't give him the reaction he wanted. Her lack of emotion only irritated him more. He stepped in front of her, blocking her view. Then he shoved her shoulder, just enough to try to provoke, not enough to look like an assault. But she didn't even sway. Her balance was perfect, anchored like a soldier bracing for recoil. Santos blinked. For a moment his confidence cracked. The bartender noticed. His friends noticed. A small pocket of silence opened around them. People love to fight, especially in a military bar. But this one felt unequal. The woman was smaller, calm, alone. And Santos was building up steam. One of his friends muttered, "Man, back off. She's not reacting. That's weird." But Santos wasn't listening. He'd already taken her stillness as an insult he needed to correct. He reached for Alex's arm, trying to forcibly spin her around to face him. And that was the moment everything changed. Alex didn't explode. She didn't lash out. Her movement was subtle, barely visible to someone who knew what they were looking at. But in a fraction of a second, she shifted her weight, slid her elbow up, and redirected his grip so smoothly that it almost looked like she simply moved out of the way. Santos stumbled forward, completely off balance. He blinked in confusion, realizing he had somehow lost control over someone who hadn't even stood up yet. His pride stung. His ego burned. "What the?" he muttered. His anger ignited fully now. He stepped back toward her. "Okay, you want to play games?" Alex finally looked up at him with eyes that were absolutely still. The eyes of someone who had seen war, loss, and missions that could never be spoken about. "I gave you a chance to walk away," she said softly. Something about her voice sent a shiver through one of the nearby Marines. Not loud, not aggressive, just a warning. But Santos mistook it as fear. He clenched his fist. Alex knew that if she defended herself openly, if she dropped him, disarmed him, or used technique beyond civilian norms, her mission could be compromised. So she had a choice: let him hit her and risk injury, or neutralize him invisibly. Her mind clicked into tactical mode. She chose option 3. Disarm, redirect, end threat quietly. Around them, the bar watched, feeling tension thickening like a storm front. No one knew who she was. No one guessed her training. No one expected what would happen next. Santos drew his arm back. He swung, and in the next instant, Santos's fist cut through the air, fast, fueled by ego and alcohol. But Alex was faster. She didn't block. She didn't punch. She simply moved. A slight angle of her torso, a shift of her foot, a calm breath. His fist passed harmlessly past her shoulder. To anyone watching, it looked like he just missed, but she had guided that miss with surgical precision. Before Santos could recover, Alex's hand tapped the side of his wrist, light, barely noticeable, yet perfectly placed. That tiny movement redirected his momentum, making him stumble sideways into the bar. Glasses rattled, a few people gasped. Santos looked stunned, humiliated. "What the hell?" he muttered, trying to figure out how he had missed by so much. Her expression remained neutral, not mocking, not fearful, just controlled. And that calmness only made him angrier. His friends rushed over, partly to stop him, partly because they didn't understand what they just witnessed. "Bro, chill," one of them said, grabbing his shoulder. Santos shoved him off. "Nah, she thinks she's slick. She tried something." One of the Marines looked at Alex. "Ma'am, you okay?" Alex nodded politely. "I'm fine. Really?" Her voice was steady, but her mind was racing. This was spiraling, and she needed it to die down fast. The last thing she needed was a brawl interfering with her surveillance mission. But Santos was beyond listening. "This isn't over," he said. He stepped toward her again. The bartender, an older man who'd seen enough Marine fights to fill a book, finally stepped out from behind the counter. "Hey, that's enough. Back off, Santos, you're drunk." Santos pointed at Alex. "She started it." The bartender rolled his eyes. "She hasn't moved from that seat since she walked in." That made several Marines pause. It was true. She'd been still the whole time. If she really wanted a fight, she would have stood up long ago. But Santos wasn't thinking logically anymore. "She did something to me. I swung and she dodged weird." "Dodged weird? That's your excuse?" A few people laughed. Santos's face darkened. Being laughed at in front of fellow Marines? Unacceptable. He stepped toward Alex again, jaw clenched. This time, Alex rose from her seat. Slowly, deliberately. Her movement changed the entire energy of the room. She wasn't tall. She wasn't bulky. She looked like an average woman you'd pass on the street. But when she stood, everybody felt it. A quiet, unshakable intensity. The kind of presence that comes from years of missions, discipline, and training that most soldiers never experience. Santos froze. Just for a second. Something in her posture made him hesitate. But his pride pushed him forward. "What, you think standing up changes anything?" Alex tilted her head slightly, studying him, not as a threat, but as a puzzle. "I've asked you nicely, twice." "That's supposed to scare me?" he snapped. "No, it's supposed to protect you." Her words hit harder than any punch. Humiliated, angry, and fueled by ego, Santos made his final mistake. He grabbed her arm. Hard. The crowd winced. Even his friends muttered, "Oh no." Because everyone knew, even if they didn't know who she was, that no calm person stays calm forever. And the second his hand clamped down, the switch flipped inside Alex. Her training took over. She didn't yank her arm free. She didn't punch. She didn't kick. Instead, she rotated her wrist just a few degrees, a movement so small most people missed it. His grip broke instantly. Santos blinked. "What?" Before he could finish the sentence, Alex stepped inside his guard. Her hand slid across his forearm, her palm pressed gently behind his elbow, and click. A quiet, controlled joint lock. Santos's eyes widened in pain. He tried to move, but the more he struggled, the more pressure her technique applied. "Stop fighting," she said. "You're going to hurt yourself." He froze, half from the pain, half from the realization that he was completely, utterly overpowered. And she still wasn't using force. This was restraint, pure professional restraint. The other Marines stared. None of them could figure out how Santos had gone from aggressor to trapped in a joint lock in under 2 seconds. One whispered, "Dude, that was normal." "No, man, that was tactical." "She didn't even flinch." "What unit you think she's from?" "Bro, what if she's Special Forces?" Santos's friend approached her carefully. "Ma'am, with all respect, who are you?" Alex took a sip of water. Her voice stayed soft, neutral. Just someone trying to mind her own business. To the casual ear, it sounded like a simple response, but to the Marines, now suspicious, now curious, it sounded like a hint, a deliberate non-answer. And they weren't wrong. Before anyone could ask more, Alex's phone buzzed. A coded message, a simple line. Target spotted, back entrance, 2 minutes. Her posture shifted, a subtle readiness sharpened her expression, because while everyone in the bar was trying to figure out who she was, her real work was just beginning. She stood up, tossed a bill on the counter, and nodded politely to the bartender. "Thanks for the water." The Marines parted instinctively, giving her space. Even Santos didn't say a word. But as she walked toward the door, something unexpected happened. Santos stepped into her path. Not aggressive, not confrontational. Confused, worried. "Look," he said quietly, "I don't know what your deal is, but I know one thing. You're not normal." Alex stared at him. "You shouldn't follow me," she said gently. "Are you in trouble? We can help. There's 10 of us." Alex paused. For a moment, her mission collided with her instinct to work alone. But she didn't answer. Instead, she pushed open the bar's back door. The night air outside the bar was cooler than inside, sharp enough to clear the haze from anyone's mind. Alex closed the door gently behind her, letting the noise of the bar fade into a distant hum. The alley behind the building was dim, lit only by a flickering lamp and the red glow of a cigarette someone had dropped earlier. She scanned the area quickly, noting everything: the dumpsters, the shadows, the exit route. Her instincts sharpened like a blade. The message she received meant the target was close. She walked with the calm confidence of someone who had done this too many times to count. Her steps were quiet, her breathing steady, but inside her mind, calculations fired rapidly. 2 minutes. The broker would be here. He didn't know she was tracking him. He didn't know she was inches away from shutting down whatever deal he was planning. As she rounded the corner of the alley, she saw him, a tall man with a trimmed beard, wearing a black jacket and a cap pulled low. He leaned against a car as if waiting for a cab, but Alex recognized his posture, fake casual. He wasn't waiting for a ride. He was waiting for someone dangerous. She slowed her pace slightly, softening her steps. She had planned to approach from the rear, to shadow him until backup arrived. But her night had already been disrupted by the confrontation inside. She needed a clean angle, no noise, no attention. She exhaled slowly and took 1 step forward. Then she heard footsteps behind her. Alex didn't turn. She didn't need to. She recognized the shuffle, the weight distribution, the hesitation behind each step. A Marine, and not just any Marine, Santos. He emerged from the bar's back exit, followed by 2 of his friends. They stood near the doorway, watching her with a mix of curiosity and concern. Alex clenched her jaw quietly. This was the last thing she needed. Santos took a few steps toward her. "Hey!" he whispered loudly. "You good? You didn't look okay in there." Alex's heart rate stayed steady, but pressure built in her mind. The man she was tracking might notice the noise. If he got spooked, he'd disappear, and disappear dangerous. She glanced over her shoulder, giving Santos a controlled, warning look. "Go back inside, now." Santos took that as confirmation she was involved in something serious. Instead of backing off, he motioned to his friends. "I knew it. She's in trouble. Come on, we'll cover her." Alex swallowed a sigh. These weren't bad men. They weren't threats. They were Marines trying to help someone they thought was alone, but their presence was a liability. The broker across the alley straightened up, noticing the movement. His hand drifted subtly toward his jacket pocket. Alex sighed internally. She'd lost the advantage. She lifted her hand behind her subtly, signaling the Marines to stay put. But Santos stepped closer anyway. "Is that guy bothering you?" he whispered. Alex stepped forward instantly, intercepting him before he could move. Her hand pressed gently to his chest, stopping him with surprising ease. "Listen to me carefully. Do not move, do not talk, and whatever you do, don't follow me." Santos finally saw something in her eyes that made his breath catch. Not fear, not anger, but sheer icy focus, a level of discipline he only saw in soldiers who'd seen real combat. He opened his mouth to speak, but she was already walking away. Across the alley, the broker pushed off the car and started to walk. Alex adjusted her stride to intercept him casually, blending into the environment, as if she were just another passerby. But he wasn't fooled. His pace quickened, and Alex felt the tension rise. She cut him off before he reached the street. "Leave the bag," she said quietly, her voice low. He froze. "I don't know what you're talking about." Alex's eyes narrowed slightly. "You do." The man hesitated, weighing his options: fight, flee, or bluff. His hand dipped again toward his jacket. Behind Alex, the Marines tensed. Alex reacted instantly. She stepped forward, caught the man's wrist, and twisted it downward with a controlled precision that made him drop the small black pouch tucked under his jacket. He tried to pull away, but Alex drove him silently against the car with a maneuver that looked far too efficient for a civilian. The broker hissed in pain. "Who the hell are you?" "I'm a nobody." Alex reached for the pouch on the ground, and that's when the second man appeared. A shadow moved behind the dumpster. Alex's instincts screamed. She pivoted just in time to avoid a pipe swinging toward her head. The metal slammed into the car with a loud clang that echoed through the alley. The Marines gasped. Santos stepped forward on reflex. Alex didn't have time to tell him to stop. The second attacker swung again. Alex ducked, swept his legs out, and drove him to the asphalt with a hard thud. The broker tried to slip away, but Alex caught him by the collar and shoved him back down. Santos couldn't hold back anymore. He rushed forward. Alex saw him out of the corner of her eye and felt a spark of frustration. If he got involved, someone would get hurt, probably him. "Stay back," she snapped. But Santos didn't listen. The second attacker scrambled up and swung wildly. Santos slammed into him, tackling him into the wall. The other Marines joined him, pinning the man down clumsily but effectively. The broker tried to break free again. Alex shifted her stance, twisted his arm behind his back, and brought him to the ground in one clean motion. He groaned, face pressed against the pavement. Santos looked over at her, breath heaving. You're not just some woman in the bar, are you?" Alex gave him a look that wasn't a denial, but wasn't a confirmation either. The distant wail of a siren began to echo toward the alley. Backup, the kind she didn't want civilians around to witness. She grabbed the pouch, slipped it into her jacket, and turned to Santos and his friends. "You didn't see me," she said firmly. "You didn't see any of this. You were never here." Santos stared at her. "Why? You saved us. Let us help." Alex stepped closer. Her voice dropped to a low, steady tone. "I work alone, and the less you know, the safer you stay." The sirens grew louder. Santos swallowed. He understood now. Whoever she was, whatever she was doing, this wasn't small. This wasn't bar fight trouble. This was something lethal. He nodded slowly. "Okay." Alex backed away, fading into the shadows at the far end of the alley just as two unmarked vehicles turned onto the street. Santos watched, jaw tight, as the woman he had picked a fight with just an hour earlier disappeared like a ghost. He whispered, almost in awe. "What are you?" And Alex, already gone into the darkness, didn't answer. Alex moved through the shadows behind the alley, her pace steady but fast. She could hear the unmarked vehicles screech to a stop behind her. Agents stepped out, her back up, but she didn't approach them. Staying unseen was part of the job. They didn't need to know she had been forced to engage early or that 3 Marines had been dragged into the chaos. Her priority was the pouch now secured inside her jacket. She slipped down a narrow walkway between 2 buildings, emerging on a quieter street where the glow of streetlights painted the pavement gold. Only when she reached a safe distance did she slow her steps and finally allow her body to release the tension. The pouch contained a device, small, unmarked, and dangerous enough to justify the entire undercover operation. A signal scrambler connected to a remote detonator. Something that, in the wrong hands, could create the kind of chaos that shakes entire cities. She took a breath. Another mission almost over. Almost. Before she could make the extraction call, her phone buzzed again, a number she recognized instantly. She answered quietly. "This is Ward." A firm voice replied, "We have the package. Your broker and his backup are in custody. Good work, Alex. What's your location?" "I'm clear. Headed east, no tails." "Copy. Debrief in 1 hour." She hung up and slipped the phone back into her pocket. She stepped out of the alley, ready to disappear into the night, when she heard footsteps behind her. Not fast, not hostile. Familiar. She turned. Santos stood across the street, hands in his pockets, breathing hard as if he had been searching for her. He had lost his jacket in the scuffle earlier. Now he wore only a wrinkled t-shirt, his face lit by the yellow streetlight. Alex felt a flicker of irritation, but also something else. Respect. Few people would have dared to follow her after what they had seen. Santos didn't approach right away. He lifted his hand slightly, showing he meant no harm. "Look, I know you told us to stay inside, and I know you told me to forget what I saw." He paused, swallowing. "But I can't." Alex kept her stance neutral, ready to move if she needed to. "You should," she said calmly. Santos took 2 steps forward. I need to say something." She waited. "You could have hurt me in that bar. You could have humiliated me. You didn't. You controlled everything without hurting anyone. I've never seen someone move like that." Alex stayed silent. She didn't want gratitude. She didn't want acknowledgement. She wanted him to turn around and walk away before he got dragged into a world he didn't belong in. Santos lowered his voice. "You don't owe me anything, but can you tell me one thing? Are you military?" Alex looked at him for a long moment. She studied his eyes, no judgment, no ego now, just respect, maybe even admiration. He wasn't trying to invade her privacy, he was trying to understand what he had witnessed. She stepped closer, stopping only a few feet from him. "If you were smart, you'd forget I exist," she murmured. Santos gave a faint, almost sad smile. "Yeah, I figured you'd say that." She turned to walk away. But Santos called after her softly. "Hey, whatever you're doing out there, be safe." Alex paused only for a heartbeat. Then she continued walking, her silhouette growing smaller under the dim streetlights until she blended into the night entirely. Santos watched her go, knowing he would probably never see her again. But he also knew he had witnessed something he would carry with him forever. Not fear, not shame, but the realization that real strength didn't always roar. Sometimes it moved silently, calmly, and with purpose. Behind him, his friends stepped out from around the corner where they'd been waiting. "Dude, was that her?" one asked. Santos nodded slowly. "Yeah." Another Marine exhaled. "So, what now?" Santos stared at the empty street where she had vanished. "Now," he said quietly, We respect what we saw, and we don't tell a damn soul." The Marines nodded. They understood. Some stories weren't meant to be shared. Some people didn't fit into categories like soldier or civilian. Some operated in shadows for reasons bigger than anyone could guess. They turned back toward the bar as police lights flashed in the distance. Another fight would break out someday. Another Marine would get loud. Another night would come and go. But none of them would ever forget the woman who walked among ghosts, who took down armed men with silent precision, who held back enough power to crush the room in seconds, and who chose restraint instead. Miles away, Alex finally reached a safe zone, a small, unmarked building with no sign and no windows. She scanned the area once more, then slipped inside. A man in a suit greeted her with a nod. "Successful?" Alex placed the pouch on the table. "Clean." "Any complications?" She thought briefly of Santos, his stubborn bravery, his unexpected respect. She considered mentioning it, but then she shook her head. "None," she said. The man nodded. "Good. Another mission off the board." Alex exhaled slowly and walked down the hall toward the debriefing room, her expression steady once more. Whatever came next, she would handle it. She always did. That was her world. Silent, unseen, necessary. She didn't need thanks. She didn't need recognition. She didn't need a name. But somewhere in the city, a Marine was telling his friends to keep quiet, to forget a ghost-like woman they never truly understood. And that was enough.